Greetings. Welcome to the Art of Law. This first video is part of an Illuminated lecture series. We start with The American Scholar by Ralph Waldo Emerson. This lecture will be delivered in 5 to 10 minute video segments. The American Scholar was written by Emerson in 1837. It has been called our nation's Declaration of Independence by Oliver Wendell Holmes, the doctor and poet, whose son, Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., was a Civil War veteran and Supreme Court justice, whose work will be the subject of later Illuminated lectures. But let us turn back to the American Scholar, which asks us to distinguish the ordinary life that is from the life that ought to be. I first read the American Scholar over 15 years ago, at the dawn of a new millennia. Ever since, I have reflected on Emerson's words and tried to develop the path of a whole man and not a hyper-specialized piece of a man. I am not a job, but a multidisciplinary being, a husband, a warrior, an artist, an attorney and counselor at law, a man. In an era where specialization is encouraged and the generalist looked down upon, I encourage you to reflect on the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson. Now, I am pleased to share with you the American Scholar. Mr. President and gentlemen, I greet you on the recommencement of our literary year. Our anniversary is one of hope and perhaps not enough of labor. We do not meet for games of strength or skill, for the recitation of histories, tragedies, and odes, like the ancient Greeks, for parliaments of love and poesy like the troubadours, nor for the advancement of science, like our contemporaries in the British and European capitals. Thus far, our holiday has been simply a friendly sign of the survival of the love of letters, amongst a people too busy to give to letters anymore. As such, it is precious as the sign of an indestructible instinct. Perhaps the time is already come when it ought to be and will be something else. When the sluggard intellect of this continent will look from under its iron lids and fill the postponed expectation of the world with something better than the exertions of mechanical skill. Our day of dependence, our long apprenticeship to the learning of other lands, draws to a close. The millions that around us are rushing into life cannot always be fed on the sere remains of foreign harvests. Events, actions arise that must be sung, that will sing themselves. Who can doubt that poetry will revive and lead in a new age, as the star in the constellation Harp, which now flames in our zenith, astronomers announce shall one day be the pole star for 1,000 years. In this hope, I accept the topic which not only usage but the nature of our association seem to prescribe to this day: the American Scholar. Year by year we come up hither to read one more chapter of his biography. Let us inquire what light new days and events have thrown on his character and his hopes. It is one of those fables which, out of an unknown antiquity, convey an unlooked-for wisdom, that the gods in the beginning divided man into men, that he might be more helpful to himself, just as the hand was divided into fingers, the better to answer its end. The old fable covers a doctrine ever new and sublime, that there is one man, present to all particular men only partially, or through one faculty, and that you must take the whole society to find the whole man. Man is not a farmer, or a professor, or an engineer, but he is all. Man is priest and scholar and statesman and producer and soldier. In the divided or social state, these functions are parceled out to individuals, each of whom aims to do his stint of the joint work whilst each other performs his. The fable implies that the individual to possess himself must sometimes return from his own labor to embrace all the other laborers. But unfortunately, this original unit, this fountain of power, has been so distributed to the multitudes, has been so minutely subdivided and peddled out, that it is spilled into drops and cannot be gathered. The state of society is one in which the members have suffered amputation from the trunk, and strut about so many walking monsters. A good finger, a neck, a stomach, an elbow, but never a man. Man is thus metamorphized into a thing, into many things. The planter, who is man sent out into the field to gather food, is seldom cheered by any idea of the true dignity of his ministry. He sees his bushel and his cart and nothing beyond, and sinks into farmer instead of man on the farm. The tradesman scarcely ever gives an ideal worth to his work, but is ridden by the routine of his craft, and the soul is subject to dollars. The priest becomes a form, the attorney a statute book, the mechanic a machine, the sailor a rope of a ship. In this distribution of functions, the scholar is delegated intellect. In the right state, he is man thinking. In the degenerate state, when the victim of society, he tends to become a mere thinker, or, still worse, the parrot of other men's thinking. In this view of him, as man thinking, the theory of his office is contained. Him nature solicits with all her placid, all her monetary pictures. Him the past instructs, him the future invites. Is not indeed every man a student? And do not all things exist for the student's behoof? And finally, is not the true scholar the only true master? But the old oracle said, "All things have two handles. Beware of the wrong one." In life, too often, the scholar errs with mankind and forfeits his privilege. Let us see him in his school, and consider him in reference to the main influences he receives.